So today's topic is about alpha herpes viruses, starting with herpes simplex virus. Now the word herpes, it means creep or to crawl. Herpes simplex virus belongs to ubiquitous herpes viridae family, and human herpes simplex virus causes contagious infection with large reservoir in general population. The unique property of herpes viruses is that they are able to establish lifelong persistent infection in their host, and this undergoes periodic reactivation after latency and produces recurrent infection which is incurable. HSV has a potential for significant complications in the immunocompromised host. HSV1 is normally associated with the orofacial infections and encephalitis, whereas HSV2 is associated with the genital infections, and this can be transmitted from the infected mothers to the neonates. Both the viruses, they establish latent infection in sensory neurons. In case of HSV1, the sensory neuron is trigeminal ganglion. For HSV2, it is sacral ganglion, and which on reactivation will cause recurrent lesions at or near point of entry into the body. The classification of human herpes viruses. The herpes viruses have been classified. It belongs to family Herpes viridae, subfamily Herpes virinae, which is classified into alpha, beta, and gamma. And these are further classified or differentiated on the basis of replication cycle or growth cycle and cytopathology, then the site of latency, and then the genus under the subfamily, and official name and common name. We are covering today is alpha herpes virinae virus, and they have short replicative cycles from about 16 to 18 hours, and they are cytolytic. The latency occurs in neurons, and the genus is simplex and varicella. In simplex, we have human herpes virus 1. The common name is herpes simplex virus 1, type 1, and human herpes virus 2. The common name is herpes simplex virus type 2. Varicella genus, the official name is human herpes virus 3, and common name is varicella zoster virus. Then we have beta subfamily, in which we have a long replicative cycle more than 24 hours, and cytopathology is cytomegalic. Latency occurs in glands and kidney. Genus is cytomegalo. Official name is human herpes virus, and common name is cytomegalovirus. Under this, we have Rosello genus, and latency occurs in lymphoid tissue. The replication cycle is long and lymphoproliferative in nature. In this, we have human herpes virus 6 and 7. Then we have gamma subfamily. Here, replication cycle is variable and it is lymphoproliferative in nature. The latency occurs in lymphoid tissue. Genus is Lymphocrypto, which is human herpes virus 4. Common name is Epstein-Barr virus, and another genus is Redino. The official name is human herpes virus 8. The commonly known as Kaposi sarcoma associated herpes virus. Epidemiology. Herpes simplex virus associated diseases, they are worldwide very common, and they are leads to widespread infection affecting nearly 60 to 95% of the human adults. There is no animal reservoir or vector for human herpes simplex virus, and the highest incidence of herpes simplex virus 1 infection occurs early in life among children from 6 months to 3 years of age. 70 to 90% of the person by adulthood, they acquire antibodies to herpes simplex virus 1. The primary infection by herpes simplex virus 2 is more common in young adults. The only natural host is humans, and transmission is by direct contact, by the direct skin contact or through the mucocutaneous surfaces. All the infected individuals, they harbor the latent infection, which undergoes reactivation and cause recurrent infection, which may be asymptomatic and are periodically contagious as the virus is shed in the secretions. HSV1 and 2, they are capable of causing initial infection at any anatomical site. But more commonly, HSV1, it causes recurrent oral infection. HSV2 causes more recurrent genital infections. Then is neonatal herpes. This is uncommon but fatal infection of fetus or the newborn. The increase in neonatal herpes cases is directly proportional to increase in the cases of genital herpes, and in more than 90% of the cases, this occurs as a result of maternal fetal transmission. There is a vertical transmission from the infected birth canal to the fetus. Herpes simplex virus is the leading cause of sporadic fetal encephalitis in children and adults. Transmission. So for the herpes simplex virus, the transmission is by direct contact with the virus containing secretions or with the lesions on the mucosal or mucocutaneous surfaces. For HSV1, it is by the direct contact, usually by the infected saliva, and the infections occur above the waist. Whereas for the HSV2, the infection occurs below the waist, and there is a sexual transmission and also vertical transmission. Now coming to structure of the virus. This virus is large, around 150 to 200 nanometer in size, and it is spherical. The genome is double-stranded DNA. It has icosahedral symmetry, and it is enveloped. The envelope is made up of lipoprotein. The lipid part of an envelope is derived from the nuclear membrane of the infected host cell, and the protein part is the glycoprotein spikes, which are anchored on this envelope, and they are 8 nanometer long, and they bind to the host cell receptors, and they are important for the virus entry. They are virus encoded. Then there is a structure which is between the capsid and the envelope, which is called tegument. This is the amorphous layer of protein which surrounds the capsid and is between the capsid and the envelope. Just briefly, the replication. As it is a DNA virus, the replication takes place in host cell nucleus. The steps would be same. There is virus adsorption and penetration, followed by DNA replication in the host cell nucleus, then synthesis of virus components and their assembly, and there is acquisition of the virus viral envelope, followed by latency. So initial step is the adsorption. The virus attaches, the virus envelope, it fuses with the host plasma membrane, and the nucleocapsid penetrates the host cells. And there the DNA genome is released into the nucleus, and there the transcription and translation of viral components takes place. It leads to formation of immediate early proteins, which are the non-structural protein, and late proteins, which are the structural protein. And this is how the virus components, they are synthesized and they are assembled. Finally, they acquire the host cell membrane through the budding process, and they become enveloped. And after this, they go to the site of latency. Herpes simplex virus, and both 1 and 2, they cause infection of skin and mucocutaneous surfaces. This can be seen on skin, eye, oral cavity, and genital tract. In healthy, the infection is mild and self-limiting, whereas in immunocompromised and newborn, the infection may be severe and life-threatening. In primary infection, which is for the first time, first exposure, no previous exposure, it can be severe and there is no immunity. In non-primary first infection, because of the exposure, previous infection, there is cross immunity and it is less severe. In recurrent infection, this is less severe and has shorter duration than primary infection. Commonly asymptomatic. There is no physical distress, but they are contagious. Pathogenesis of herpes simplex. In the immunocompetent individuals, the virus replication takes place in skin and mucous membrane, which is the main portal of entry sites, and then this is followed by replication and spread in neural tissue, which is the site of latency. The viral infection, it begins at the cutaneous portal of entry, which can be oral cavity, genital mucosa, ocular conjunctiva, or breaks in the keratinized epithelia. Once they enter the site, oral or mucocutaneous site, the virus, it replicates locally. As it is cytolytic in nature, this will cause the death of the cell, and sometimes it can produce clinically apparent inflammatory response, which can be seen clinically or characteristically as herpetic vesicles and ulcers. After this, the virus, it can enter the nerve ending, and through the nerve ending, it can reach to the sensory ganglion and by the intraneural transport. And there it replicates in the sensory neurons. HSV1, it replicates in the trigeminal neuron, and HSV2 in the sacral ganglion. And from there, they can go back to the periphery where they are released from nerve endings and replicate further in skin or mucosal surfaces, which is the primary site of entry. Most of the HSV infections are subclinical. In some of the infected neurons, the infection is latent, which means there is the replication of virus will be intermittent, and these are transmitted within the nerve fibers back to the cutaneous site of the initial infection or primary infection. Recurrent infections may be symptomatic, but these viruses are shed at the site, so they can be transmitted to susceptible individuals and they are contagious. Viremia is it does not occur in immunocompetent host. It only occurs when the immunity is not well developed or is impaired or suppressed, as in case of neonates or individuals with eczema, severely malnourished children, and HIV infection. The viremia can result in dissemination of virus to the visceral organs, including liver and adrenals. The hematogenous dissemination of the virus can affect or involve CNS, and this can cause encephalitis in the neonates. Transmission usually occurs during delivery, and portal of entry is through the conjunctiva, mucosal epithelium of the nose and mouth. With the antiviral therapy, the virus replication can be restricted to the local sites like skin, eye, or mouth. But once latent infection is established during the neonatal infection, the survivors usually have recurrent cutaneous and neural infections. So how the infection takes place? The virus enters through the skin or mucous membrane, then it undergoes the local replication at the site. As it is cytolytic in nature, this will cause the lysis of the cell. Sometimes it can also cause inflammatory response in the form of clinically vesicles, which can further undergo ulceration. Some of the virus, it can reach the sensory nerve. Through the sensory nerve, they can reach the root ganglion, and where they undergo latency. And some external stimuli like cold, fever, surgery, or exposure to UV light or any trauma, they can reactivate the virus. And once they are reactivated, they can travel back to the root ganglia, to the sensory nerve, and from the sensory nerve to the primary site, where they can cause the recurrent infection or secondary infection. So HSV, it establishes the primary infection within the host. It enters the sensory nerve terminals at the peripheral site. By the retrograde axonal transport, it reaches the trigeminal nerve ganglion, where it establishes the latency, and various triggering factors can reactivate this virus, and from there it can travel back from the dorsal root ganglion to the sensory nerve, and from there they can reach the epidermis, and at the epidermal dermal junction, which is the primary site, and this results in recurrent infection. So latency for HSV1 is trigeminal ganglia. For HSV2 it is sacral ganglia. The picture is of recurrent herpes labialis, where the vesicles are formed over the lips. Now how the latency and reactivation takes place? Basically, the first it enters through the skin or mucocutaneous surfaces. So virus replicates here at the site of the skin, and from there through the cutaneous neurons it reaches or migrates to the ganglion, and there it remains in the latent state. From this can be reactivated through various triggering factors, and this will travel back through the sensory neurons to the site of epidermis or the primary site, and this will cause the recurrent infections. Clinically, there would be formation of vesicles which are 2 to 4 millimeter in size. They are small and surrounded by erythematous base. Later on, they can cause the ulceration. Most of the infections are asymptomatic or unrecognized as small skin fissures. Clinically, the HSV1 infections occur above the waistline, and HSV2 infection occurs below the waistline. And HSV1 is basically transmitted through the skin contact or through the infected saliva. HSV2 has sexual and vertical transmission. Under HSV1 we have acute gingival stomatitis, recurrent herpes labialis or oral herpes, herpetic whitlow, keratoconjunctivitis, encephalitis. In HSV2 we have genital herpes and neonatal herpes. Neonatal herpes can also be caused by HSV1, but more commonly by HSV2. Clinically, HSV1 infection, it can cause several forms of primary and recurrent diseases. One of the common primary infection which is seen in children is gingival stomatitis. This is characterized by fever, irritability, vesicular lesions in the mouth. So you will see vesicular lesions in the oral cavity, and this is common in children. And primary disease, it is more common, more severe as compared to recurrent disease, and it lasts longer. The lesion will heal spontaneously within 2 to 3 weeks. Many children may have asymptomatic primary infection. Next clinical presentation can be herpes labialis, also known as oral herpes. Fever, blisters or cold sores are the milder recurrent forms. Here you will see crops of vesicles, and these are formed at the mucocutaneous junction of lips and nose. These are the vesicles which you can see at the mucocutaneous junction of lips and nose, and recurrences are common at the same site. Again, herpes labialis showing vesicular lesions over the lips. This shows the gingival stomatitis, oral cavity showing the lesions. Then is another presentation is affecting the eye or ocular infection. It causes keratoconjunctivitis. There is a severe conjunctivitis, and there can be dendritic ulcer formation and vesicular lesions over the eyelid. The recurrences can lead to opacification, scarring and blindness. Then is encephalitis. It can involve the temporal lobe and cause the necrotic lesion. Thus, the presentation would be fever, headache, vomiting, seizure and altered mental status. Then is herpetic whitlow. Here, this is common in medical personnel who are in contact with the patient's lesion, and you will see pustular lesions which can be seen more commonly over the site like skin of the finger or hand. Then is herpes gladiatorum, which is seen in wrestlers, and this is the vesicular lesions can be seen on head, neck and trunk due to close body contact. It can also cause disseminated infection where the visceral organs can be involved, leading to the esophagitis and pneumonia. This is common in immunocompromised patients. This is a picture of hepatic whitlow. You can see the pustular lesions over the skin of the finger. And this is a picture of herpes laedotorum, where you can see the vesicular lesions over the face and head. And this is because of the close body contact. Erythema multiforme is again another presentation where you will see the central red area surrounded by a ring of normal skin, and there is a red ring surrounded by this, giving a appearance of target or bull's eye lesion. There is a lesion in macular or papular and seen more commonly over the trunks, hands and feet. Then is HSV2. HSV2 we have, it causes genital herpes, and genital herpes lesions are vesicular lesions which you will see on male and female genitals and anal area. The vesicular lesions are bilateral, they are painful, and they are tiny vesicular lesions which can be seen, and the lesions are more severe in the primary disease than in the recurrences. And the primary infections are always associated with fever and inguinal lymphadenopathy. The asymptomatic presentation is common, that is why they become the important source of spread to other individuals. Neonatal herpes, it occurs from the contact with the vesicular lesions within the birth canal. So infected birth canal, the child or the neonate that can get infected, and the presentation can be severe disease in the form of severe disease, disseminated lesions or encephalitis, or it can also present as mild local lesions affecting only skin, eye and mouth, and to asymptomatic infection. The neonatal herpes can be prevented by performing CS, that is cesarean section on women who has active lesion or positive viral cultures. But the HSV1 or HSV2, it does not cause congenital abnormalities to any significant degree. This is a picture of neonatal herpes, and the infants which are infected during delivery or postpartum, they present with one of the three patterns of disease. They can be localized disease affecting only skin, eyes or mouth, and the next presentation can be encephalitis with or without involvement of skin, eye or mouth, but this is highly fatal, and the child who survives or neonate who survives has permanent neurological impairment. Third presentation is disseminated infection, where it involves visceral organs, multiple visceral organs like brain, lungs, liver, heart, adrenal and skin. This is the differences between HSV1 and HSV2. The mode of transmission in HSV1 is direct contact with the mucosa or saliva, infected saliva. In HSV2, it is sexual mode or vertical transmission. In HSV1, the latency occurs in trigeminal ganglia. In HSV2, it occurs in sacral ganglia. HSV1 exposure or the age which is affected is in early life, young children. HSV2 affects young adults. The lesion or clinical presentation would be in HSV below above the waistline, and in HSV2 below the waistline. In HSV1 you can see oral facial mucosal lesion, encephalitis, meningitis, ocular lesions, skin lesions. In HSV2 the lesions can be genital lesions, skin lesions, neonatal herpes. On chorioallantoic membrane, HSV forms smaller pox, HSV2 forms larger pox. In comparison to HSV1, HSV2 is more neurovirulent and more drug resistant, and the antigenic homology between the HSV1 and HSV2 is more than 80%, and DNA homology is more than 50% between HSV1 and HSV2. For lab diagnosis, we can take prepare the smear from the various sites depending on the site of infection. We can take the scrapings from the base of vesicle, CSF in case of encephalitis, meningitis, and saliva can be taken, and tank smear can be prepared by staining it with 1% aqueous solution of toluidine blue for 15 seconds in which you will appreciate multinucleated giant cells with homogeneous faceted nuclei and ground glass appearance of chromatin, and these are called tank cells. Also, you can appreciate inclusion body, which are intranuclear type A inclusion bodies. This can be seen in Giemsa-Stein smear and Pap smear. So this shows the multinucleated giant cell. You can see the clump of large hyperchromatic epithelial cells lying free within the vesicular space, and this can be seen in herpes simplex, in varicella zoster. This is the multinucleated giant cell which you can see. Then we can isolate the virus by doing culture. Now culture is the gold standard, and this is preferred test in genital ulcer or mucocutaneous lesion. It is highly specific, but sensitivity declines if the lesions begin to heal. This is more positive in case of primary infection as compared to recurrent infections. So you can culture the virus on monkey or rabbit kidney cell culture lines, human amnion cell culture lines, HeLa cell culture lines. For HSV1, you will see that there would be ballooning of the cells, and the cytopathic effects you can see in HSV2 is syncytium formation, that is heaped up cells, and there would be fusion of the cells, and there would be giant cell formation. This shows the cytopathic effect. Cytopathic effect can be seen on culture within 2 to 3 days, and here you can appreciate the ballooning of the cells. This is diffuse ballooning of the cells. Then we can look for herpes simplex virus antigen by immunofluorescence test. You can see the immunofluorescent virus antigen. Apart from this, we can also do the serology and molecular tests like polymerase chain reaction. This helps in differentiating HSV1 from HSV2. And serologically, the antibodies, they appear in within a week, and they reach to peak in 2 to 4 weeks. And IgM is for shorter time and is replaced by IgG antibodies. Rise in antibody titer is important and meaningful and can be demonstrated by ELISA or complement fixation test. This is summary of what about the lab diagnosis or the tests which can be done for the diagnosis. By microscopy, we can make the tank smear, in which you will see multinucleated giant cell with faceted nuclei and homogeneously stained ground glass chromatin, which are known as tank cells. And then we have light microscopy, in which you will see eosinophilic intranuclear inclusion bodies. On electron microscopy, you can appreciate the virus particle. We can also do direct antigen detection. We have direct fluorescent antibody test, in which you can detect the HSV antigen directly in the